I want to get into this Tasha, this Cardi B, basically burning Tasha K, a new a hole. In case, in case you guys don't know, now you're gonna know with this here.
It's showtime.
Ah, come
This
on.
is a performance. Keep the rhythm. Here we go. I want you to bring me that energy.
Everybody knows this right here. And in case you don't know what this is the instrumental for Rihanna's "Bitch Better Have My Money." I just want to play a little bit of it. Okay, and that's enough of that. I played enough of that. Let's get into Eternity Someone Red Wine. Let's go.
And her husband could be facing jail time now as a result of both the last court contempt ruling, the last order in the Tasha K saga, and the brand new lawsuit that Cardi B has filed against not Tasha K, but her husband and her husband's businesses. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. Also, make sure as you come on in, you want to hit that like and subscribe. We're at 82K subscribers. We're trying to get to 90,000. Make sure you also turn on your notifications because this week I will also be releasing a follow-up video on whether I'm going to call her Coach Cheyenne now because she's not a doctor, on whether Cheyenne, the truth about whether she could be facing jail time. And this is going to be a true legal analysis, not a blogger analysis. I've seen some of those videos flying. They're getting some important things really wrong. It won't be very long. But then I'm also going to release a video, my response regarding what's going on with Coach Stormy and basically her
Another
situation with the
scam
feds now.
artist.
Let me know in the comments below what other topics that you want me to hop into. Listen, I'm going to go ahead and start with it. Baby, let me tell you. I told you so. I told you. I told you. If you're new to the channel, that's okay. You may have missed it. I have actually created on the channel a playlist that is it is literally all the videos that I've done on Tasha K and Cardi B. But most recently, March, I believe it was the 12th, I released a video where literally I was breaking down what was going on with the Cardi B contempt case. This is the cover.
Okay, go
this was the
ahead.
thumbnail of that video. And in that video, I literally warned. Because when you warned, I literally warned Tasha K that she could be facing exactly what she's facing now. So here is a clip from that YouTube. And basically what I was going into, what I was explaining in this video is how, so with the last case, the last issue was that there was a contempt hearing and the judge found in favor of Cardi B. And in that ruling, we put the court documents up and in this video, and in that ruling, it was very clear. I looked over some of the numbers because so Cardi had filed the motion to hold Tasha in contempt for talking about Cardi's baby daddy as well as her husband in violation of the bankruptcy agreement. The agreement they both agreed to. And there were a number of issues there. But just to clarify that ruling, in that ruling, what the judge ordered there was that Cardi basically got everything she wanted. The judge ruled that all 25 posts that Cardi B brought up as at issue as violations, that they were in fact breaches of the agreement where Tasha K breached by either talking about Cardi B, her family, or her baby daddy, or her husband. The judge also ruled and made very clear in the order, Tasha K cannot talk about either the baby daddy or the husband. Because some people thought, oh, the baby daddy is not family. I see how some of y'all feel about your baby daddy. No, you may not see your baby daddy as family. Under the law and under the definition in the non-disparagement, she can't talk about her. The baby daddy either, Stefan either. And the judge ruled that Tasha K has to pay all of Cardi B's lawyer's fees. Now, Cardi hasn't submitted those fees just yet, but will.
Damn. Cardi's getting everything. She getting lawyer fees, and she making sure the woman can't talk about her or anybody associated with her. Run that money, Tasha. Run Cardi her money.
Court gave her a month to do that. But I can tell you right now, based on the types of attorneys that she has and the fact that these violations stemmed from last July 2025 on to present, and also includes the cost of her lawyers and investigators to literally monitor Tasha K's social media platforms, all of them, watch the videos, find the violations, send notices to Cardi's lawyer. That amount's going to be over 100K. I anticipate it'll be about 100 to 150K. But also, Tasha K's own lawyer has to pay 10% of the cost of a specific violation. And that was the cost that Cardi B's lawyers spent responding to literal fake cases that Tasha K's lawyer put in their response motion. He literally used, I think he used probably ChatGPT, but he put in there literally fake cases that didn't say what he claimed to say, or some cases that just didn't even exist. So
wait a minute. Fake cases? Isn't that illegal? Shouldn't that be grounds for disbarment or something? That's weird.
Our own lawyer is liable for 10% of that. Tasha K has to pay the rest of that. And FYI, she's only paying her lawyer $2K a month. They have an agreement that in exchange for her paying the lawyer less, she's going to include his advertisements on her reels, on her videos, all of that. But as far as actual dollars this man is getting, the records show he's only getting about $2,000 a month, and more than likely the amount of the fine he's going to have to pay is going to exceed what he even was paid by Tasha K for the month. Also, the one thing though that did not go in Cardi's favor technically was that the judge ruled Cardi was asking that the judge set a predetermined fine amount so that the next time Tasha K does that, she has to pay the fine and submit it to Cardi B's lawyers within like a designated number of days, 48 hours, whatever. The judge said, nah, we're not doing that. However, if Tasha violates it again, you can come right back to court, file another motion, and we'll go through this whole rigmarole again. And of course, if she wins that motion, she'll get more attorney's fees and possibly sanctions then. But the gist of it is the judge says, no, I'm going to evaluate each alleged violation, and I'm not going to set a predetermined penalty. Now.
All right.
Here's what I want you to hear. I want to play this clip for you of after I reviewed that initial consent motion, I looked at the financials that Tasha K submitted, and I said, no, y'all, something in the milk ain't clean.
She's hiding that damn money. That's what it is.
The things that they're
Tasha
doing,
is still hiding money.
Making it so that Tasha has huge expenses, but only minimal income, and it's not the truth. Sorry, that would be bankruptcy fraud. And those are the types of things that'll get this whole thing not only dismissed, but referred for criminal charges. It could be seen as wire fraud, tax evasion, and very importantly, doing that means the LLC that should be paying it likely isn't paying employment taxes properly. Everyone isn't necessarily an independent contractor just because that's how you're paying them. So it could launch an investigation by the IRS and the state.
And let me say this here. If Tasha K is still hiding money in a court proceeding of this nature, not only is she committing wire fraud, um, she's also what they call that um something something with the court, but I can't quite name it off the top of my head. But her hiding money most definitely is wire fraud.
Florida and whatever entities they're in to make sure that they're paying the proper taxes for employment taxes, but also making sure that if in fact Tasha is paying expenses for corporations that aren't hers, that are really her husband's. What can happen is they can what's called pierce the corporate veil. And Cardi B could then start treating all those businesses like they are actually Tasha K's personal bank accounts. There will be no limit on this payment plan. The 1.2 million out the door. Cardi would be able to start garnishing money from any and all of those entities up until that $4 million. Now, once that $4 million is paid, Tasha can start talking about Cardi B and say whatever she wants. In effect, from the financials, and you can look at the financial documents in that other video. It breaks down those financials. I'll go ahead and I'll put this down. But let me tell you what some of those financials were showing, and then I'm going to give you the excerpts, the cliff notes from Tasha K's pleadings. But basically, what the financials were showing is that Tasha K was bringing home like a lot of money. Her own documents. These are her documents she gave to the court because with the bankruptcy plan, every month she has to give Cardi B her banking financials, and each quarter, at the end of every 3 months, she has to give a summary of her finances. Well, in that summary, it showed that in January of 2026, Tasha K made $80,000 in that month.
I believe it.
For the first quarter, she made $234,000. But yet she was claiming she earned, after her expenses, it was negative $7,000. Well, that's weird because Tasha K was claiming to be an employee of her husband's business and claiming that all the money, that all the gross revenue made by Tasha K Live, the YouTube channel, her live shows, that all that money went to his company. That was his money, and she's just a meager little employee. Well, when I looked up the document, I said,
Lies.
that's not what this don't look right. Because, for example, in January, she said the revenue was $80K, but that she had $46,000 worth of contract labor expenses. I was like, no, if you're an employee, you're not paying other employees. That is for the business. Well, apparently Cardi B and Cardi B's legal team agreed with my assessment, and that's why they have filed the new lawsuit. So we're going to get into the new lawsuit, and then I'm also going to share with you some receipts. And again, like I said, I have been talking about this since at least 2022, 2023, but you will see why here in just a moment.
At VistaPrint, we print signs so people can see your brand up close. But we also print signs so that people can see your business here, see it here, and see it here, so you stand out. Even when they're way back here. Get 15% off signs and banners at Vistaprint.com.
Moment. And as we jump into this, don't forget you can always go to SimoneRedwine.com if you're injured anywhere in the United States to get a free injury consultation with me, or call 855-4-SYMONE, Simone. Also, I own a title company in Texas. If you have a closing for a real estate property anywhere in Texas, we would love to help. Same number, 855-4-Simone. I'm going to take that banner off so y'all can see it all. Here we go. There we are. So basically, to start off, what Cardi B is saying is that she is filing this lawsuit. It's against Yellen Entertainment. That is Tasha K's husband's company. They used to own it together. We'll get into that. But Yellen Entertainment and her husband personally. And she's basically claiming that the two of them conspired together to make fraudulent transfers of assets and properties so that Cardi B couldn't use those assets and properties to satisfy the judgment. Most importantly, these transfers were made after the jury found in Cardi B's favor. I don't know what type of slow learner. Now, Tasha K talks about being a little slow. She says she went to ninth grade 3 different times. But her husband, he has a degree, to my knowledge. He works in IT prior to basically running her business. So he definitely should have known better. So basically, the allegation is fraudulent transfer. And what Cardi B is seeking to do is make it so that Tasha K's argument is, oh, she's just an employee. Her husband owns the business. He's got the money. Cardi is saying, I don't give a flying fart. In this lawsuit, I am asking the court to rule that those transfers were fraudulent to hide money from me, and that as a result, your husband has to pay the $4 million judgment. No payment plan, no reduction down to the $1.2 million. Your husband's assets, his personal assets, and the business assets can be used to run Cardi her money. And this is a whole new lawsuit, baby. It's going to have depositions. It's going to have everything. So effectively, what Cardi is saying is, I am going to make it to where your kids got to go to underfunded public schools, baby. I am going to make it so where there is no more grace. Because I gave you grace before, and you spit in my face. Because I signed the bankruptcy plan that gave you 5 years to pay me. It actually even said, I will not come after any of your husband's assets at all. All you got to do is keep my name out your mouth and make the payments according to our payment plan. Tasha was making the payments according to the payment plan, but couldn't keep that mouth shut. So what it says is that on February 17th, Georgia District Court.
And all you had to do, Tasha, was STFU. And you couldn't STFU for shit.
Court may enter into the defamation judgment in 2022. Okay. Then it says that the court basically it made a total ruling that totals up to basically the $4 million judgment that we talk about, and that in that judgment there were 2 methods. There were 2 entities that were liable that are relevant. Number one is Cardi Studios. That was basically the LLC that Tasha K was operating under. Okay, Cardi Studios was found jointly and severally liable for $1 million. This is $1 million in compensatory damages, which is damages that are pain, suffering, injury to Cardi B's like reputation. Yes, she did win that, and medical expenses. And then another $1.3 million from the LLC was awarded by the jury for a total judgment of basically $2.3 million. Then it says, in addition, a jury awarded $500K in punitive damages against Cardi Studios. All right, that is why, which totals $2.8 million. That's why it could not be dismissed in bankruptcy. If it is found that there are punitive damages, that means what you did that thing on purpose. You did it intentionally, and any intentional acts cannot be wiped away in bankruptcy. Otherwise, rich people would do exactly what Tasha K is trying to do here, which is defame her, run it up, get all these new subscribers, make all this new money from the lies, and then say, oh, I'm going to file for bankruptcy. The court said, psych. So number one, the judgment said, it was against Cardi Studios, and part 2 of the judgment was a personal judgment.
Like, share, subscribe, everyone. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you very much.
Jointly and severally liable with Cardi Studios in the amount of $3.3 million before interest. Okay, and then it goes down and say Cardi Studios and the personal judgment put what Tasha owes and what Cardi together. It totals 3.9. She is basically asking the court to find that Cardi B has a choice. Cardi could either get all 3.9 from Tasha, or from Tasha's husband, or from Tasha's husband's businesses. That's what jointly and severally liable. She only gets paid once, but it can come from any of these. That's what she's saying. And then it says the judgment also created an injunction against Cardi B and against Tasha K and the business, prohibited them from publishing or republishing defamatory statements, but they did that anyway. We know that. Okay. Now it says neither Cardi Studios' judgment, the judgment against the LLC, or the personal judgment against Tasha K has been satisfied. Now, Tasha K has made payments, so whatever the judge ultimately rules, it will be, the total amount will be reduced by the payments already made.
Okay. Okay,
Now,
makes
it says
sense.
that.
Get the Fred Anderson Family Plan, now available at Fred Anderson
Come
Acura.
on. Be
Now,
back in
it
a
says
second, y'all.
that.
Hold on.
Now, what was really interesting to me is they then go in to describe how it is Tasha K tried to pull off the fraud. So that's what we're getting into. It says, and it reminds you, the personal judgment was, so the only bankruptcy that was filed was for Tasha K personally. None of the businesses. Why? Because the businesses make so much money, she didn't want to lose her business or have to sell the business assets. Also, there's more than enough money to pay Cardi B's judgment when you see the cash flow of the business. A lot of people keep saying, Tasha ain't got it. I don't know why Cardi B keeps doing it. Tasha ain't got it. Oh, yes, she does. In the month of January alone, Tasha K made, according to herself, $86,000 alone. Now it says the personal judgment, is not covered in the discharge. And then it goes down. Here's the scheme. Cardi Studios' successor scheme. Number one, that her husband formed Yellen Studios on May 31st, months after the verdict. You cannot do that. And then he caused the entire business of Cardi Studios, its operations, revenue streams, clients, managements, contracts, everything of value, and even his services. He then gave his services to Tasha K as talent and transferred all of that to the new LLC without paying Cardi B's judgment. Can't do that. This is Cardi Studios then was dissolved, leaving it an empty shell with no assets from which Cardi B could be paid. I told y'all. It says the new business basically is a successor in every meaningful way, and because it was created fraudulently, is liable to pay the Cardi Studios judgment because it's the same entity. Basically, what they're saying is these idiots said, oh, this LLC owes a judgment, so we'll just disband the LLC, create a whole nother LLC, which, by the way, y'all, they're calling it Yellen, but also they refer to it as Stash Entertainment, as in stashing away money so Cardi B can't get to it. These idiot nincompoops. Wait till you see the documents, okay? Cardi says the husband, okay, there was a personal income diversion scheme. It says that's the part B of the scheme. It says the husband took a series of steps to render Tasha K's personal income and assets unavailable to satisfy the personal judgment. He rerouted Tasha K's salary and earnings through Yellen's accounts in a structure designed to frustrate garnishment. Basically, Cardi B was out there garnishing accounts. The money couldn't get garnished. He removed Tasha K from bank accounts. Any account with Tasha's name on it could have been garnished. He removed her name on which she had been authorized. He caused Tasha K to stop receiving direct payment. In other words, she was getting paid directly from Google and stuff. And he accepted the transfer of debtors' interest in their real estate located in Georgia. Oh, baby, I covered that one. I covered that. Here we are. And gosh, that was in 2023. I'm gonna hop to that one because that was the one that really made all of this obvious. And I'm actually surprised it took this long, but I believe it took this long for Cardi B to file this motion because her expectation was, look, all Cardi really wanted was for Tasha K to shut up and stop talking about her. Well, Cardi got that as a provision of the bankruptcy plan. So Cardi actually wanted Tasha to just do the payment plan according to the bankruptcy plan and shut up. But once Tasha made clear she wasn't going to shut up and she was actually going to double down and go on social media and make herself a victim, that is why now Cardi is like, all right, I don't want to keep going back and forth. You and your entities are just going to have to pay me because you keep violating this. Okay, so here is the clip from, this is actually 2023. Now, in this clip, this is where, from my old video, again, this was Tasha K's bankruptcy leading to jail time, June 24th, 2023. This is where I found that she basically ceased her other LLCs, but that she was shifting assets. This section is actually called shifting assets, and I show where she did that with her house. In April of this year. Why? To try and avoid them being part of her bankruptcy. So basically, what she did after the court ruled against her is these are considered generally, they're considered fraudulent transfers. Basically, you cannot get a judgment against you. She got a judgment against her in February of 2022. And once you get that judgment, start moving money from all of the businesses that you had. In fact, the court specifically said you can't move the money around or you will be considered in contempt. So what she could be facing is actual jail time. You see, usually somebody. Here we go. We're going to hop to it. And this is the thing. So this video, I'm going to link it below. It's going to show you. And she's here we go. It's going to show you all the different ones. But the one that I thought was the dumbest and the most egregious, I'm going to just go ahead and just put it on the screen, just since that video is a little bit blurry. But this was literally the dumbest. I can't afford therapy. You can afford that much as smoothie. Therapy is for rich people. No, it's like $15 a session. Girl, you gotta get therapy.
With Rula, getting help is easier than talking yourself out of it. What happened to her?
Terrible things. This is the last of your debts.
Robin Hood. I'll keep you safe. I'll keep you safe.
Here we go. Here we go. Hold on. It is. All right, so this is actually the fraudulent transfer. Okay, so I know it may seem a little small on there, and we don't care about the address. She does not live there anymore. She actually has rented it out. But this shows that she transferred her home after the judgment was already entered to her husband for $0. $0. That's how you know it's a fraudulent transfer. And that's what I broke down in that prior video that I'll link below. So, and here's what makes it even crazier. Then, girl, Tasha K had the audacity when she submitted her April financials to list her mortgage, the mortgage on this house that she's now already said she transferred to her husband, as one of her expenses. Look at this.
Really?
All right, so you see here, this is what Tasha K's attorneys just submitted in April to the court. Her wages for January alone, $82,000 for the first 3 months. That's the $234,000. She's made payment for the 3 months for first quarter, $51,000 to Cardi B. But then if you go to this page, hold on, we've got under her expenses, we've got mortgage payments. It says mortgage payments of $1,200 a month. Now, in a total of $3,600 for the entire quarter. That's how it's very obvious, and that's how I knew from the last video that it appears Tasha K is basically trying to show that she's running all the expenses through her, even though she's supposed to just be an employee. She's running expenses for assets that belong to her husband. That's fraudulent, and you can't do that, especially because the way they calculate the amount of money available to repay Cardi B is after expenses. So what Tasha is doing, because you see here, she's had $82,000 in income for January. So what she's doing is she's trying to make her expenses seem super high. If you go to the second page, that's why she's claiming contract labor of $46,000. I thought you were the employee. I thought you were the employee. So then, of course, I pulled more bank documents. Because you know I like to come with receipts. Y'all, come look at this. Look at these documents, and they show clearly how she has been trying to get away with including expenses that are her husband's business expenses. All right, so here's a bankruptcy filing. This is with the filing, she has to include her bank statements, right? This is bank statements for any of the entities that she is associated with. So here we go. This one was, this is the Bank of America. Look, so here, and this is from last year. This is just to give you an idea of how the scheme is working, right? Is that, so last year on our bank statement, now mind you, this is a statement from Stash Media, right? That's the new fake company. Stash Media, Yellen Media, those are the new companies used to hide the assets. Google pays out the 21st day of each month. So for Tasha K's YouTube, she got about 39,000 is what it's showing there, plus another $2,600 from YouTube in that month. And then though, but it shows Tasha K paid to Stash $7,200 and some dollars. Why are you paying your employer if you're the employee, ma'am? Miss Ma'am. She also got $3,300 from Rockstar Wireless, which she used to run ads for. And then there's a Cash App here that it says that she sent to Stash Media. But check this out. Then you go to this page. Again, these are supposed to be Tasha K's expenses to be used to calculate what is available to pay Cardi B. Look at all this. These are payroll expenses. I was so confused. I looked at this, what I highlighted here. It says Ohio Child Support. I was like, wait, Tasha K ain't paying child support for no, she's not. That's how you know these are payroll expenses. And these are different dollar amounts, $2,000 here, $800 there. But apparently one of their employees has a child support order. And when you receive from an employee a child support order, you must, according under the law, separate and give the child support to the state that's garnishing the child support and give the rest of the check to that particular employee. But you know what else that means? That means they're an employee. It means it's not contract labor, as Tasha K tried to say on the prior pages that I showed you. Because if someone is just your independent contractor, you are not withholding child support from those people. You're not withholding anything. They're contract laborers, they're 1099s, and you go on your way. So what that shows is it appears they are also miscalculating employees, which then goes into IRS fraud and all types of other fraud. Look at this, is all payroll, all different employees that they're playing, that they say, oh, this is contract labor. Why do they probably call it contract labor? Because if they called it employees, Cardi B's team would have picked it up. It would have been too obvious, because what you don't have is Tasha K. Remember, Tasha K has claimed to be the employee of her husband's company. If you're an employee, you need to be paying other employees. And I think I had said in the prior video, but in my analysis, I was like, the best way Cardi B will be able to show and prove that these are fake payroll expenses is, I bet you anything, both Yellen and Tasha K are probably paying the same people. And sure enough, in Cardi B's motion, that's exactly what she talks about. So I just wanted to give you an example of some receipts. Then I'm going to go back into the Cardi B motion, and we're going to wrap this up. Give you an example of some receipts. Then I'm going to go back into the Cardi B motion, and we're going to wrap this up. All right, so in effect, what Cardi B is alleging is that the scheme worked in two ways. Number one, it was that they canceled the LLC that they were collecting all of the money and operating it under, took Tasha K's name off of everything, started a new LLC that they're running all the costs and expenses through. And then secondly, they're diverting Tasha K's income, making it seem like she makes far less than she does. And then they're having all the company expenses flow through, be deducted from Tasha K's money, as though to show that she doesn't have much money to pay back Cardi B.
Like, share, subscribe, please. Like, share, subscribe.
Tasha K's husband took a series of steps to render debtors' personal income and assets unavailable to satisfy the personal judgment. And then it says, Tasha K's husband has repeatedly admitted under oath that these were acts undertaken to help the debtor, Tasha K, avoid payment of the personal judgment through garnishment. And this is how you know the lawyer must have been a little stupid too, because the moment your client admits to that, you need to settle. You need to come up with a payment plan. And that's probably why he was encouraging her to take the payment plan. But then she better be on her best behavior, because there's no way that the bankruptcy could stand with any of this proof. Now, it goes on to say, Cardi B says she's bringing this action, and here's the reasons. This is the nitty gritty. For actual fraudulent transfers under the law, for constructive fraud, for successor liability, basically saying we want to be able to take all the assets from Tasha K's new company because they just created, quote, an alter ego, and they want to pierce the corporate veil, which allows them to get all the bank accounts and all of that of the new company. They also want the court to find that her and her husband were part of a civil conspiracy to defraud Cardi B. And right now, all of this is civil. What Cardi's asking for is civil, but at any point, if the feds, whether that's prosecutors that prosecute bankruptcy fraud or other, want to pick this up, there is nothing to stop them. And then it says they're also asking for a constructive trust, basically where the court takes all of both Tasha K's assets and her husband's assets, puts them into a trust and controls them. Basically, they can't even pay bills without the trust. It would be a receivership is what it's called. And paying bills, paying assets, all of that would be under the control of the bankruptcy receiver who would pay Cardi B and prevent any more of these shenanigans. And then she also wants her attorney's fees. It also states that the LLC, that the LLC lied and claimed it was half owned by Tasha K's brother's brother to avoid liability, but it wasn't. So they're claiming that too. Now then they jump in and it says, prior to all the shenanigans, moving the money, it says that Cardi Studios was the primary vehicle through which Tasha K conducted her social media business, utilizing the Unwind with Tasha K brand across YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and other platforms. Cardi Studios also managed Tasha K Live, which is her subscription page. Now, I told y'all, I said, watch, she's going to move from putting majority of her stuff on YouTube to a paid website because the paid website cannot easily be garnished. Versus what Cardi B actually did was Cardi took the order because YouTube pays 21st of each month. Once you have a court order, you simply send it to the legal department at YouTube and say, don't pay any remaining checks until I have received all 4 million of what I am owed. Cardi did that. And that's all of a sudden when Tasha K both filed for bankruptcy and then started creating these new entities. It says the debtor was compensated through Cardi Studios, and at various times she received W-2 wages from Cardi Studios as an employee. Now, it then says the judgment entered against Cardi Studios comprised of $2.3 million that was joint and severally liable, meaning that was going to be paid either by the LLC or Tasha K, either or the husband. Now they're saying put them on. Actually, no, it was Cardi Studios. Initially, her husband was not personally held liable. But what they are asking for now is that because the husband helped her do this fraud, they named him as a defendant and said, we don't want just the husband's LLC assets. We want the husband's personal assets too as a penalty, and a court can absolutely order it. Now, then it says Yellen was formed with the identical business purpose as Cardi Studios. I said that. You can't have a new business that does the exact same thing as the last one. It's too obvious, dingbat. Then it says, upon Yellen's formation, Yellen assumed management of the debtor's Unwind with Tasha K platforms, continued video productions, and businesses that were previously operated by the other LLC. Duh. Then it says, her husband testified like an idiot under oath, quote, that Cardi Studios was terminated because, quote, it wasn't being operated properly and because it had a judgment against it. There was no independent, legitimate business reason for the dissolution and no arm's length transaction, meaning like with a third party that's disinterested. And as a result of that, and as a result, that literally is what defines a fraudulent transfer. In addition, it says Cardi Studios' YouTube income just simply shifted over to the new entity. Literally. Same money, new entity, boom. Obvious. Then it says, when Cardi Studios was dissolved, it had no assets. It had nothing to satisfy the judgment. That's also unlawful. Then it says, Yellen, the old LLC, the new LLC, step directly into Kebi Studios' shoes in every operational aspect. It assumed management of the same social media platforms. It served the same clients, the debtor, and it performed the same services, content production, etc. There were no gaps in operations. This
None.
Cardi B's petition states. Then it hops down and it says, also, Tasha K's husband ran both entities. So, duh. So you don't even change the employees or try to act like, oh, we sold it to a different person. They could have at least pretended like they sold it to like Tasha K's brother or something. They didn't do any of that. Then it says, because how it works is you can sell assets after a judgment so long as the court has not entered anything barring that. And the court did not at this time. There was nothing saying Tasha K could not sell any of her assets. At this point, she had not been in bankruptcy. The thing is, if you're going to sell your assets, you have to sell it for the market value. You can't start giving stuff away because it's obvious that is a fraudulent transfer. So then it says, Kebi has been unable to identify in sworn testimony a single written term of any agreement between Yellen's management arrangement and the last LLC. So basically, they don't even have documentation that says, oh, we sold the company. None of that. It's so obvious. So then part 2 of this is that it says the personal income and assets diversion scheme. Here's how she ran the play. So it says, Tasha K and her husband undertook a series of coordinated financial maneuvers designed to render Tasha K's personal income and assets unavailable to satisfy the personal judgment. Her husband removed her as an authorized user from a Bank of America account through which her payroll had been deposited. He informed the court under oath that he did that expressly to, quote, avoid garnishment. Yes, because if Tasha K's name is on an account, that account can be garnished. The account he's talking to, y'all, is the one that I had previously put on the screen in this live to show you all the payroll moving through that account. That is the account where Tasha K's name was on that account previously, and they removed it. Debtor Tasha K also asked her husband to, quote, stop paying her directly from the LLC account in order to avoid garnishment. And her husband then complied. He acknowledged this under oath, meaning in a deposition. And then a month after the original defamation judgment, Tasha K transferred the interest in her residential real estate property located in Georgia. There's the address, okay? She doesn't live in it, so this is not, This is not doxing. And this is in a true and correct document shows that, remember, I talked about that in the prior video 3 years ago. And then it says, when asked why her husband did not reverse the transfer upon learning of it, her husband said, oh, I wanted to help her avoid garnishment. You stupid fool.
Very stupid
When
fool.
asked directly whether he was helping debtor avoid paying Cardi B, he answered, yes. Okay, so you two stupids, now we see why y'all are together. Because you're both slow. You both were in the slow classes. I think you probably just are good at computers. You know, there's some slow people, but they're good at computers. That's her husband. And then it goes on to say the property transfer was undertaken with the purpose of hindering, delaying, and defrauding Cardi B from taking the money. So here's the thing.
You just heard the world
from taking the money. So here's the thing. Cardi B can now take everything from the husband, which is wonderful. And
great.
It then says the personal judgment, it goes on for the count. So here's what her husband is being charged with. No, this is just the husband. This is not Tasha. Because for Tasha, she can just get the bankruptcy set aside, which she is seeking to do. For the husband, he's being charged with fraudulent transfer, and that is where if Tasha K makes a transfer with the intent to hinder, delay, or defraud Cardi B, we've talked about that evidence. It also says that her husband received the court's direct warning to Kebi Studios, the prior LLC, not to transfer assets. So at some point, he was told not to do it, and he did it anyway. That's why they're going to tap that butt. Defendants have repeatedly admitted under oath the purpose of the transfer was to avoid garnishment.
Very much.
And that she's tired, and this is saying Cardi B is entitled for them to set it all aside. Basically, she can get to it all. Then the other charge is fraudulent transfer under Florida law. We talked about that. Then we've got this successor liability. That's basically you're going to treat the new LLC like it was the one that was originally stated in the judgment, and Cardi B is allowed to take all $4 million from them at this point if she proves the fraudulent transfer as a penalty, and then piercing the corporate veil. That is basically it says a court can pierce the corporate veil of an LLC, which means they can then hold its members personally liable where a member dominated and controlled the entities to such a degree that it lacked independent existence. Basically, her husband was treating it like it was their bank account. And as a result, it's no longer considered a separate LLC. And secondly, where the corporate LLC form was used to devise or perpetrate a fraud to evade a legal obligation. And then finally, civil conspiracy. That's where the two of them work together to defraud. And they want the money all set aside, basically put into a trust. Her husband can't do anything. Let me give you the big picture here. So effectively, if Cardi B wins this lawsuit, Tasha K loses her trademark. She will lose her YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. She will lose it all. Any bank account, any and all of that.
So everything will go.
Can be issued so that anything in those accounts can be seized, and Cardi B gets that first $4 million plus all of her attorney's fees that she is entitled to. This is also super serious because when you talk about the trademarks and stuff that they can take, not just trademarks, websites, TashaKLive.com, all of that. Many people have said, but it's not even worth anything if Tasha K isn't running it. It's not worth anything. I mean, how am I being? Let me show you something. See, people said the same thing about The Onion. About Alex Jones's InfoWars. So if you don't remember who Alex Jones is, I'm going to put it on the screen, but Alex Jones, he was the creep who was claiming that, what do they call it? That Sandy Hook never happened, that it was a hoax, that the parents set it all up, and that those children did not actually pass away in a violent way that they did. Those families filed a defamation suit and won. He didn't take it seriously, Alex Jones didn't, and they won $1 billion with a B against him. So this is what his little rump looks like, right? So this is him here. So as a result, all of his assets were seized. And when they were seized and put into receivership, what happens is they're sold. Well, a website called The Onion that is totally satirical put in a bid to purchase his YouTube channel, his website, all of that, and then they are going to dedicate it to a satirical website that just makes fun of him, and 100% of the proceeds would then go to the victims. So hypothetically, if Cardi B wanted to, Cardi B could literally buy Tasha K's channel, buy Tasha K's website, and use them to troll her or whatever else she wanted to. And Tasha K would have to start all over. And for those saying, oh, there's no money in it, like the value of those is that Tasha K's there, you a lie. There is so much money. You're not a lie. You probably just don't know. There is so much money in data. So anyone who buy it would get all the subscribers, all the followers. They could literally change the name of the channel and immediately have subscribership. Don't you think? Let me know in the comments your thought. But if Cardi B, hit that like and subscribe, if Cardi B were to buy it and then just use it to advertise whatever she wants, baby, people would go over there just to see her troll. Cardi B could just use it. You know, she likes to go live and people like to watch her go live and yell and scream at people, whatever she got going on. All of that they would like to see. So I want to, in closing, I want to answer a few common questions that I'd seen. Put your questions down below in the comments if I have not answered it. But another blogger, Lakeisha Keisha, on her channel, and I'm going to tag her below, she made a discussion about, could the husband be deported? If this becomes criminal, absolutely. Her husband's not a citizen. He is African. I don't remember which country. I think Nigerian, but I'm not sure. Anyway, wherever her husband is from, if he is found liable for bankruptcy fraud, IRS fraud, wire fraud, any of those things that seem to be proven from if these allegations are true. Absolutely, they will deport his black behind. They don't want him here, no way. That is exactly what happened to Real Housewives of New Jersey, Teresa Giudice's husband. He was involved in a fraudulent scheme. They had him serve his time and deported his butt. He can't even come back. Can't even come back. Another question was, what about that 1.2 million payment plan? Baby, that's gone. That's out the window. Okay?
For my friend, Luke.
And for my mom, Phinia.
For my husband, Helmet. Honor someone you love by learning the warning signs of stroke.
A stroke can happen to anyone at any age. Be fast to spot a stroke.
I shall kill you one by one.
You can try.
Okay? Cardi B has filed this whole new lawsuit, and all of the facts, including the under oath statements, support this. I even bet you the next thing you'll see is Cardi B's lawyers will likely file what's called a motion for summary judgment when they're allowed to proceed against her husband, and they're going to do the motion for summary judgment. That motion says, Your Honor, even if you take everything in favor of Tasha K, whatever Tasha K is claiming, even if you believe that, here are sworn testimony that proves we are telling the truth. Here are depositions. Here's all that. And judge, in a motion, you can find in our favor. We don't have to go to trial. You can do it in a motion. And the judge can do that. And likely will if, in fact, there are deposition statements where her husband or her are admitting the whole purpose of moving the money was to avoid garnishment. Stupid.
Right.
And what can her husband do to prevent Cardi from taking it? Honestly, the only thing her husband can do would be file for bankruptcy. But he makes too much money to qualify. Also, remember, this is a bankruptcy judgment for punitive damages for deliberately lying on Cardi B. So even if he files for bankruptcy, it's not going to protect him. This is a non-dischargeable debt in bankruptcy. That's how come Tasha didn't get rid of it. So really, there's nothing he can do. He can't even file bankruptcy. I think those are the basic things that I wanted to cover in this video. I know it's longer than I expected. It's your legal bestie, Attorney Simone. Let me know down below in the chat. What are your thoughts? Do you think Tasha K? So now you see, y'all. Now you see. This is why Tasha K did that GoFundMe. This is why she did it. Tasha K wants to GoFundMe because she just wants to pay off this $4 million and go on. Because after she pays, she can go ahead and say whatever she wants about Cardi. But more importantly, she wants to go ahead and pay up before the evidence of fraud is brought to the light of the feds, who can then charge her criminally. I believe there is a 5-year statute of limitations for that. And this was continuing behavior up until now, because they're still claiming that she's running money through her husband's company. So she can't say, this was back in 2022. Nope. It's your legal bestie, Attorney Simone. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. Thanks. Hey guys, it's your legal bestie, Attorney Simone. I'm not even going to worry your...
Okay, I'm going to go to Pam Esquire. Here we go. Here we go.
This is Buick now. Buick, exceptional by design. Get 0.9% APR. Plus, current eligible non-GM owners get up to $1,750 purchase allowance on Envision.
So many lies that you hear from the net, they don't get her respect. She recording the truth, not a check. You want an unbiased opinion, getting straight from the chest. Not a bit of confidence or someone here for a check. Tune in, these are thoughts from a lawyer on a mission who goes so hard it's like she works on commission. Trolls in the comments might say she tripping because they lack the knowledge. They don't know they missing. Got a couple current events that you like. Wanna know about law from the eyes. Tired of all these vlogs running live. of the intellect. Cause I'm sure y'all missing all the facts of the case that she steady is giving. Someone here for the people, man, it's so uplifting. If you ain't subscribed yet, then you just omitting facts.
Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. My name is Pam Esquire, also known as the Law Intellect. Hope you guys are having a fantabulous Friday. Make sure you hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. We are here to talk about Tasha K and Cardi B. As many of you all know, a few years back, Tasha K lost a defamation lawsuit against Cardi B and had to pay millions of dollars, of which she is currently, I guess, paying in some type of payment arrangement. Well, in that order, there was also a liability attributed to a company that is owned by her husband, and that was Kibi Studios. KB Studios no longer exists. It appears that there is a company now called Yellen. Well, Cardi B says she wants all the money. She is all gas and no brakes. Therefore, she has filed a complaint a couple of weeks ago against Yellen and KB Studios, I guess attempting to get the portion that was attributed to those entities. So that's what we are going to talk about today. So without further ado, I see all of you all coming in, but you know it's Friday and I'm still working, so I'm just going to hop right to it. And then I'll go look at the comments and stuff as we go along. Make sure, again, as people come in, make sure the etiquette that they have hit that like button so other people know that we are on. Here is the lawsuit that was filed. Belcalis Marlenis Almazar is the plaintiff versus Yellen Entertainment LLC and Chet Kibi as an individual. All right, so we know this is the nature of the action. This is an action by a judgment creditor. So, of course, she's the judgment creditor because she won a judgment to recover on two related but legally distinct judgments entered against debtor Latasha Transrena Kibi, a.k.a. Tasha K., who is the debtor, and her former business entity, Kibi Studios, by reaching assets that defendants fraudulently received, concealed, or diverted from Ms. Almazar's reach. This action is filed pursuant to and consistent with the confirmation order. So they show the citations where the court can find it on the docket for the bankruptcy case. Okay, and they basically say for the purpose of avoiding the expiration of applicable statutes of repose and which authorizes the filing of this action notwithstanding any stays or injunction arising from the bankruptcy case. Consistent with the confirmation order, Ms. Almazar, Cardi B, files this action to preserve her claims against defendants and upon obtaining further relief from the bankruptcy court authorizing adjudication, she intends to prosecute this action to final judgment. So I guess after the bankruptcy situation is sorted out, she's letting the court know she plans on pursuing her judgment that she has against these other entities. And she gives us a little background here. So we all know, again, that there was a lawsuit filed in the Northern District of Georgia for plaintiff pursued claims against debtor and Kibi Studios for defamation, false light, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. On January 10th of 2022, the District Court for the Northern District of Georgia, they commenced a jury trial that lasted multiple weeks, and the jury ultimately found Kibi Studios and debtor liable to plaintiff on each of her claims for defamation, false light, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. As a result of the willful and malicious nature of their actions, the jury assessed substantial awards of general damages, punitive litigation expenses, and found debtor and Kibi Studios were jointly and severally liable. So that means that they could be held liable individually, or they could be held liable together, jointly and severally liable. And so on February 17th of 2022, jumping, the Georgia District Court entered its judgment. So they had the original judgment, and it was in favor of the plaintiff and against debtor and Kiwi Studios. And then they attached that. So the original defamation judgment noted the jury's award to the plaintiff of $1 million for pain and suffering and or reputational injury, and $250K for medical expenses. But the parties stipulated, meaning they agreed, Kiwi's attorney, Cardi B's attorney said we'll agree $25,000. Perhaps she wasn't able to substantiate the $250, and maybe they knew it was an appealable issue. I don't know, but for whatever reason, they stipulated and agreed to $25,000. The Georgia District Court, in its original defamation judgment, also included reference to the jury's award to plaintiff of $1 million in punitive damages against debtor and $500K in punitive damages against Kiwi Studios, and $1,338,753.47 in litigation expenses against both defendants. So that would be cost and attorney fees that she was awarded as a result of having to litigate this case. On July 19th of 2022, the Georgia District Court entered an amended judgment. Okay, and a true copy of that is attached as well. And this is what this amended judgment had. It basically established that there are two distinct bodies of liability. So there are two distinct bodies of liability. A, Kiwi Studios judgment. Kiwi Studios was adjudged jointly and severally liable with debtor for the $1,025,000 in compensatory damages, which is pain and suffering, reputational injury, and medical expenses, and $1,338,753.47 in litigation expenses against both defendants, for a total judgment against Kiwi Studios of $2,363,753.47. In addition, the jury awarded $500,000 in punitive damages against Kiwi Studios, specifically bringing Kiwi Studios' total judgment obligation to $2,863,753.47, which will be exclusive of interest, because you do get interest on that as well. So the personal judgment, debtor was adjudged jointly and severally liable with Kiwi Studios for the same $1,025,000 compensatory award and the same $1,338,753.47 litigation expenses, plus an additional $1 million in punitive damages assessed against debtor individually, for a total judgment against the debtor of $3,363,753.47, exclusive of interest. So she had her personal judgment, and then there was a judgment that was against Kiwi Studios. Okay. Now that is attached as Exhibit C. So the Kiwi Studios judgment and the personal judgment represent a total judgment liability between them. So this is between them, $3,863,753.47. So that's where people got the $4 million from. Exclusive of interest, which at the time of debtor's bankruptcy filing totaled $3,911,680.95. A true and correct copy of that is attached as Exhibit C from the bankruptcy. The amended defamation judgment also imposed a permanent injunction against debtor and Kiwi Studios, prohibiting them from publishing or republishing the defamatory statements identified in the accompanying consent order. On July 29, 2022, debtor and Kiwi Studios appealed the amended defamation judgment in the case. And on March 21st of 2023, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, absolutely not. So they affirmed the Georgia's District Court's amended defamation judgment, and that is attached as well, where the Court of Appeals was like, get this out of here. All right, so neither the Kiwi Studios judgment nor the personal judgment has been satisfied. So now we got to get into the bankruptcy and what's going on with that. Debtor is currently the subject of a Chapter 11 Subchapter V bankruptcy case in the United States Bankruptcy Court for the Southern District of Florida. And then it has the case caption for that case and the case number. The personal judgment has been accepted from discharge. The confirmation order entered in the bankruptcy case expressly preserves and authorizes Cardi B to pursue this action against non-debtor third parties, notwithstanding any stay or injunction arising from the bankruptcy case, to preserve a cause of action that would otherwise be extinguished by an applicable statute of repose. So basically, they reserve their right to still pursue against the company and whoever else, okay, to get their money. So it provides that, quote, any such action shall be limited to filing and preserving the claim or cause of action to avoid its expiration under the applicable statute of repose and shall not proceed to adjudication or enforcement without further relief from the bankruptcy court. So they filed it to preserve their claim. However, because there is a bankruptcy, it's not much they can do right now. It'll be stayed. So I think they did file a motion to stay, they being Cardi B, but they want to make sure it's filed. So as soon as the bankruptcy situation is done, they want to lift that stay, if they have to, I guess, if it's not paid, so they can pursue litigation against these entities, which again you see is Yellen and Cardi B's husband. Okay?
Chevy trucks are as dependable as the Chevy people who drive them. They don't need permission to get going. They all have that little extra something. And maybe you got it too. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
Hello, Moto.
Now, so then they go on to paragraph 14 and they talking about a scheme. They said the scheme giving rise to this action was orchestrated by debtor and defendant C, Kiwi, debtor's husband and the co-owner and manager of Kiwi Studios. Defendant C, Kiwi, in concert with debtor, carried out two parallel fraudulent schemes. The Kiwi Studio successor scheme. Following the entry of the original defamation judgment on February 17th of 2022, but before the entry of the amended defamation judgment on July 19, 2022, C. Kiwi formed Yellen on May 31st, 2022, and caused the entire business of Kiwi Studios, its operations, revenue streams, clients, management contracts, going concern value, and the services of debtor as talent to be transferred to Yellen without consideration and without paying any of Kiwi Studios' judgment obligations. Kiwi Studios was then dissolved, leaving it an empty shell and no assets from which Ms. Almazar could collect Kiwi Studios' judgment. Yellen is Kiwi Studios' successor in every meaningful sense and is liable for the Kiwi Studios' judgment as its mere continuation. So then they say it's another alleged scheme. Again, these are our allegations. They say the personal income diversion scheme. Simultaneously, C. Kiwi took series of steps to render debtors' personal income and assets unavailable to satisfy the personal judgment. He rerouted debtor salary and earnings through Yellen's accounts and structures designed to frustrate garnishment. He removed debtor from bank accounts on which she had been authorized. He caused debtor to cease receiving direct payment, and he accepted the transfer of debtor's interest in real property located in Georgia without consideration approximately 1 month after the original defamation judgment was entered. C. Keeby has repeatedly admitted under oath that these acts were undertaken to help debtor avoid payment of the personal judgment through garnishment. So Cardi B brings this action for one, actual fraudulent transfer under Florida statute section 726.105 sub 1 sub A, and two, constructive fraudulent transfer under the statute 726.1051B and 726.106, successor liability and mere continuation, and four, alter ego and piercing the corporate veil, and five, civil conspiracy, and six, declaratory relief and imposition of a constructive trust. She seeks avoidance of the fraudulent transfers, money judgment against defendants jointly and severally in an amount sufficient to satisfy both the Keeby Studios judgment and the personal judgment, plus interest, cost, and attorney fees. So you guys know about the parties and jurisdiction and venue. You have to make sure that the court has jurisdiction and that we're in the proper venue when they filed it in Florida. So, of course, that is going to be the first thing they establish. Okay. They talk about how great Cardi B is. You know how they do. She's a Grammy winner. She's the artist, songwriter, television personality. She's the bomb. She got a mixtape from 2015. She's reached her peak position on charts in the United States. She's popular as heck. She got tens and thousands and millions and trillions and quadrillions of fans in the United States and around the world who follow her work and social media profile. She's just the bomb. She's the best, okay? Then they go into Yellen Entertainment, which is a Florida limited liability company with its principal place of business in Broward County. According to the tax return, their C, Keeby is Yellen's 100% member, C Keeby is Yellen's 100% member. And then they attach that, the Schedule K1 from 2022. And then they say in a sworn testimony in Yellen and, wait a minute. It says in sworn testimony, however, C. Keeby claimed that his brother, Lasana, owns a 50% membership interest in Yellen and resides in Mali, Africa. No, there's no documentary evidence corroborating this, according to them. Membership interest has been produced. To the extent C. Keeby is Yellen's sole member. Yellen is a citizen of Florida. To the extent that, they saying the brother holds any membership interest, he's a citizen of a foreign state, and Yellen's citizenship includes that of a foreign national. So under either scenario, they're saying the court still has subject matter jurisdiction. So if Yellen is solely Florida-owned, the jurisdiction exists under 28 U.S.C. 1332A1. As a dispute between citizens of different states. And if Yellen is partly foreign-owned, then they got jurisdiction under 1332A2 as a dispute between a citizen of a state and a citizen of a foreign state. In no event is any defendant a citizen of New Jersey, the state of plaintiff's domicile, and complete diversity exists under either scenario. So they're saying this is the proper spot to be. So, that was just the intro, guys. So now, pretty strong intro there. So now we got to get into the actual alleged facts. Again, these are all allegations. Good to see you, Ty. Hello, Sam. Good to see you. Houston Foodie, pretty geesy. Good to see you. YouTube lawsuit. Hey. You said she lives in Tasha K's head. That ought to be included in a factual paragraph explaining who she is. Hey, if somebody had to write about me, I want to hear about. She's made rising star lawyer. She was the top woman attorney in Michigan for 2020. Like, I want all my little accolades too, so I ain't mad at it. You know what I'm saying? That's your time to throw your resume on the top of the chart there. You said, "Dang, this was an appetizer." Absolutely, this was just a outline. So now we're gonna get into the factual background. So they'll probably get more deep into what happened at the trial, but we'll see. We'll see what's going on here. Make sure you guys hit the like button. Again, thank you all for coming in and joining. I appreciate it. So the defamation action in the original amended defamation judgment. So we're gonna start there. So beginning no later than 2018 and continuing through at least 2022, Debtor, through her Unwind with Tasha K social media platform, conducted a sustained and malicious campaign of defamation against Cardi B, publishing disgusting, false, and defamatory statements to millions of followers, falsely accusing her of being a prostitute, having STDs, engaging in debasing acts, and other fabrications. On January 14th of 2022, the trial commenced in the defamation action. C. Kibi attended the trial as the designated corporate rep of Kibi Studios. He was sworn and testified at trial in that capacity, acknowledging on the record that he was, quote, the manager and co-owner of Kibi Studios. On January 25th of 2022, the jury returned a verdict in favor of Cardi B against both Debtor and Kibi Studios. Following the verdict, the Georgia District Court would see Kibi present in the courtroom as Kibi Studios corporate rep, specifically warned both Debtor and C. Kibi not to transfer assets or change their financial condition to impede collection of the anticipated judgment, cautioning that transferring assets, quote, into the name of third parties could subject them to also possible tort actions in the future. C. Kibi has since testified under oath that he is, quote, smart enough to understand a warning from a judge, end quote. On February 17th of 2022, the Georgia District Court entered the original defamation judgment, and on July 19th of 2022, the Georgia District Court entered the amended defamation judgment, which was affirmed upon appeal to the 11th Circuit. We talked about those amounts earlier on. If you're just coming in, you have to roll that bar back. So Kibi Studios LLC, the pre-judgment business vehicle. Kibi Studio was a Georgia limited liability company that was co-owned and operated by Debtor and her husband, C. Kibi. It was the primary vehicle through which Debtor conducted her social media business, utilizing the Unwind with Tasha K brand across YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and other social media platforms, producing video content. Kibi Studio also managed Tasha K Live, which is a subscription-based streaming platform.
Backyard adventures should feel like fun, not like a battle with mosquitoes. That's where Northwest comes in. With family-friendly mosquito control, we make it easy to enjoy your yard again, protecting the moments that matter most.
Kibi served as co-owner and manager of Kibi Studios. He was responsible for the day-to-day operations, including managing Debtor social media platforms, overseeing content production, managing independent contractors, making payroll decisions, and controlling Kibi Studios' bank accounts. He handled the financial and operational side of the business, while Debtor served as the on-camera talent and content creator. Debtor was compensated through Kibi Studios. At various times, she received W-2 wages from Kibi Studios as an employee. Debtor CPA Alicia Thomas prepared the relevant payroll records and tax filings. C. Kibi provided the underlying information to Ms. Thomas for that purpose. As set forth above, the amended defamation judgment entered against Kibi Studios totaled $2,863,753.47, comprising of $2,363,753.47 in joint and several liability with the debtor.
All she had to do was follow the payment plan.
So
All she had to do.
For, like, that's joint. That means they can get it all from one person. They can get some from one person. They can get it together. So there's a
Right.
portion that sounds like it is for Kiwi Studios, that is less. And then they have it where they're both responsible. So if she ends up paying like these attorney fees and all of that, they're not going to be able to double and triple dip and all of that. But they can. She has more avenues to get her money from because it is joint and several liability. Okay. So then it has hold on. I don't know why this is jumping like this. So it has in joint and several liability with the debtor plus 500,000 punitive damages assessed against Kiwi Studios specifically. So they had $500,000 that was assessed to them personally. Kiwi Studios has never paid any portion of that judgment. The formation of Yellen and the successor scheme. I got this sounding like a Lifetime movie. May 31st, 2022, approximately 4 months after the jury verdict, approximately 3 months after entry of the original defamation judgment, approximately 7 weeks before entry of the amended defamation judgment, C. Kiwi formed Yellen as a Florida limited liability company. Upon information and belief, C. Kiwi is Yellen's sole member and manager. Yellen was formed with the identical business purpose as Kiwi Studios by C. Kiwi's own sworn description. Yellen is, quote, a video production company and a social media management company, end quote. Upon Yellen's formation, Yellen assumed management of Debtors Unwind with Tasha K, social media platforms, continued the video production business previously operated by Kiwi Studios, managed, quote, Tasha K Live, and entered into the same management arrangement with Debtor through the same personnel, C. Kiwi, that had previously existed through Kiwi Studios. Good afternoon.
Yeah,
I see you all
fat.
coming in. This is pretty
Fast choose. Quit lying on folks. Right.
lengthy document, so I'm just kind of, running through it here. Although income to and through Kiwi Studios was diverted to Yellen as early as July 2022, when the amended defamation judgment was entered, Kiwi Studios was finally wound down and dissolved on April 20th, 2023, long after Kiwi Studios had any income streams. C. Kiwi has testified under oath that Kiwi Studios was terminated because, quote, it wasn't being operated properly and because it had a judgment against it.
You can't make it up.
No independent, legitimate business reason for the dissolution, and no arm's-length transaction effectuating the transfer of Kiwi Studio business to Yellen has ever been identified. An analysis of the income streams of Kiwi Studios and Yellen exposes in real time the transfer of assets from Kiwi Studios to Yellen. Specifically, Kiwi Studios' Tasha K Live income shifted completely to Yellen halfway through July 2022, when the amended defamation judgment was entered, and Kiwi Studios' YouTube income shifted completely from Kiwi Studios to Yellen by September 2022. See income analysis attached as Exhibit F. The dissolution of Kiwi Studios and transfer of its business to Yellen was accomplished without Kiwi Studios paying any portion of Kiwi Studios' judgment. When Kiwi Studios was dissolved, it had no assets with which to satisfy the Kiwi Studios' judgment because those assets, including the going concern value of its business operations, had been transferred to Yellen. Yellen received the full benefit of Kiwi Studios' revenue-generating business without assuming any of Kiwi Studios' judgment obligations and without paying any consideration therefor. Yellen stepped directly into Kiwi Studios' shoes in every operational aspect. It assumed management of the same social media platform, served the same client, which is the debtor, Tasha K, performed the same services, content production, platform management, talent management, collected management fees from the same revenue streams, and employed many of the same independent contractors. There was no gap in operation. C. Kiwi managed both entities and personally executed the transition from one to the other.
Very much
Yellen
did.
management arrangement with debtor was never reduced to writing. and CQB has been unable to identify in sworn testimony a single written term of any agreement between them. Despite that, he confirmed that he managed debtors' platforms full-time and structured his compensation by deducting management fees from debtors' revenue before remitting the balance. Quote, I deduct my fees. Sheck said he gets his money, and then whatever is left, she gets. End quote. This arrangement is functionally identical to what Kiwi Studios did before it was dissolved. Thank you so much for the super chat. You said thank you for all your hard work, Pam. Thank you so much for supporting the platform. Alma S, I appreciate that. And that's a cute sketch. That's your picture over there on your profile. Make sure you all are hitting that like button. Yes, thank you so much for your generosity. We really appreciate you supporting the platform. Okay. So let's get into the personal income and asset diversion scheme. In parallel with the Kiwi Studio successor scheme, CKB and debtor undertook a series of coordinated financial maneuvers designated to render debtors' personal income and assets unavailable to satisfy the personal judgment. These acts were deliberate and have been repeatedly admitted under oath across multiple depositions of debtor and CKB. In August of 2022, right after the amended defamation judgment was entered, CKB removed debtor as an authorized user from a Bank of America account through which her payroll had been deposited. He has confirmed under oath that this was done expressly to avoid garnishment. At least he's an honest person. He's very honest. I mean, like, yeah, I did it because I don't want them taking all my money. I mean, debtor asked CKB to stop paying her directly from Yellen's accounts in order to avoid garnishment, and CKB complied. He has acknowledged this under oath. And then
He had no
less than 1 month
choice.
after entry of the original defamation judgment on March 10, 2022, debtor transferred her interest in a residential real property located in Georgia. I know she was selling that property not too long ago. She was asking people, y'all got anybody that want to buy it? So that's not a secret. But she transferred part of it, I guess, to CKB. A true and correct copy of the quitclaim deed is attached as Exhibit G. The transfer was made without real consideration and for no reasonably equivalent value. When asked why he did not reverse the transfer upon learning of it, CKB testified, quote, I wanted to help her avoid garnishment. Like, I don't want them taking my wife's money. Like, what? He didn't make them have to catch a lie, find a lie, just nothing. He's like, yeah, I didn't want them taking her money. I mean, we got to live too. We got bills to pay.
This is my witness, Mickey. He has a hearing condition, but believe it or not, it's virtuoso.
Virtuous, uh-huh.
I get hyperacusis. I'm allergic to loud noise.
Got bills to pay. Right. Yikes. That's all I can say was yikes. That is a good expression. All right. Each of the foregoing acts, the diversion of debtor's income through Yellen's accounts and structures, the removal of debtor from bank accounts, the rerouting of payroll, and the transfer of the Georgia property was undertaken with the admitted purpose of hindering, delaying, and defrauding Ms. Almazar as the judgment creditor of debtor. So let's get to the bankruptcy case right quick, then we're getting to the cause of action. So debtor filed for Chapter 11, Subchapter 5 bankruptcy release on May 5th of 2023. The personal judgment has been expressly accepted from discharge in the bankruptcy case. The confirmation order entered in the bankruptcy case expressly preserved Ms. Almazar's right to pursue all claims and causes of action against non-debtor third parties, including defendants herein, and authorize the filing of this action notwithstanding any stay, discharge, injunction, or other injunction arising from the bankruptcy case in order to preserve a cause of action that would otherwise be extinguished by an applicable statute of repose. So the first cause of action is actual fraudulent transfer. Again, these are all allegations. This is their version of the story.
Yep.
Okay. The Florida statute over there on section 726.105 sub 1 sub A provides that a transfer made by a debtor is fraudulent as to a creditor if the debtor made the transfer with actual intent to hinder, delay, or defraud any creditor. So Cardi B is a creditor of both debtor and Kiwi Studios by virtue of the amended defamation judgment. The amended defamation judgment is a final judgment of a federal court that has not been satisfied, vacated, or discharged. Debtor and Kiwi Studios, acting through and in concert with C Kiwi, made the following transfers with actual intent to hinder, delay, and defraud Ms. Almazar. So this is against all defendants too. You're supposed to, at the top under each caption, because that's a way too that, some people get dismissals, but you're supposed to specifically say if you have multiple defendants who all your claims are against. So they have it that's against all defendants, which would be Yellen and would be C Kiwi. Okay, so they saying that debtor and Kiwi Studios, I was jumping like this. Debtor and Kiwi Studios, acting through and in concert with C Kiwi, made the following transfers with the actual intent to hinder, delay, and defraud Ms. Almazar. A, the transfer of Kiwi Studios business operations, revenue streams, management contracts, going concerns value, and the services of debtor as talent from Kiwi Studios to Yellen, rendering Kiwi Studios unable to satisfy the Kiwi Studios judgment. B, the dissolution of Kiwi Studios after stripping it of all assets and income generating capacity, leaving it a judgment-proof shell. C, the transfer of debtor's interest in the Georgia property to C Kiwi approximately 1 month after entry of the original defamation judgment without consideration. And D, the diversion of debtor's income and earnings through Yellen's accounts and financial structures specifically designed to prevent garnishment by Ms. Almazar. The actual fraudulent intent of each transfer is established by, among other things, the following conspicuous badges of fraud. A, the transfers were made to and for the benefit of an insider, C Kiwi, debtor's husband and business partner. B, the transfers were made after the jury verdict and concurrent with or shortly after entry of the amended defamation judgment. C, the transfers were made without reasonably equivalent value. D, debtor and Kiwi Studios were insolvent or rendered insolvent by the transfers. E, C Kiwi received the court direct warning as Kiwi Studios corporate representative not to transfer assets. F, defendants have repeatedly admitted under oath that the purpose of the transfer was to avoid garnishment and payment of the amended defamation judgment. And G, Yellen was formed after entry of the original defamation judgment and prior to entry of the amended defamation judgment, and assumed Kiwi Studios' entire business without any consideration passing to Kiwi Studios or its creditors. Kiwi was not a passive recipient. He actively planned, directed, and executed each of the transfers described herein, was the primary beneficiary of those transfers, and admitted under oath by both the transfers and their fraudulent purpose. Pursuant to the statute, Cardi B is entitled to avoidance of the transfers to the extent necessary to satisfy both the Kiwi Studios judgment and the personal judgment, attachment or other provisional remedy against the transferred assets, an injunction against further disposition of the assets or the proceeds thereof, appointment of a receiver, and any other relief the circumstances may require. So when you plead fraud in federal court, most courts, you have to plead it with particularity. So they are definitely being very particular on how they're alleging they acted in concert with the transfers and their intent. So they're showing, that's what all of this is. They're pleading it with particularity, what they are alleging. Okay, count 2 is constructive fraudulent transfer. So that's under 1B of the same statute. It provides that a transfer is fraudulent as to a creditor if debtor made the transfer without receiving a reasonably equivalent value in exchange, and debtor intended to incur or believed or reasonably should have believed that she would incur debt beyond her ability to pay as they became due. Let me see if they're saying the same thing.
You know the name.
Okay. Florida Statute 726.1061 provides that a transfer is fraudulent as to a creditor whose claim arose before the transfer of debtor made the transfer without receiving a reasonably equivalent value in exchange, and debtor was insolvent at the time or became insolvent as a result of the transfer. So Cardi B claims arising from the defamation judgment arose prior to each of the transfers described herein. Accordingly, she qualifies as a creditor under the statutes with respect to all transfers. The transfers of Kiwi Studios business to Yellen, the transfer of the Georgia property to C. Kiwi, and the diversion of debtors' income through Yellen's accounts were each made without the transferors receiving reasonably equivalent value. Yellen paid nothing for the business, going concern value and revenue streams it received from Kiwi Studios. C. Kiwi paid nothing for the Georgia property interest he received from debtor. The diversion of debtors' income through structured accounts yielded no consideration to debtor or Kiwi Studios. At the time of each transfer, both debtor and Kiwi Studios were insolvent within the meaning of the statute, or the transfers rendered them insolvent. The amended defamation judgment, whether pending or entered, constituted an obligation that far exceeded debtor and Kiwi Studios' available assets. The Kiwi Studios judgment alone totaled over almost $3 million. Exclusive of post-judgment interest, which has been accruing. So there's still interest that is after the business transfer. Yellen Kiwi Studios had no assets to satisfy any portions of that obligation. So Cardi B is entitled to the same remedies set forth in count 1 above pursuant to the statutes. Hit that like button. Thank you all so much for coming. I appreciate that. Okay, what did I miss over here? What you guys talking about? Christine said Cardi ain't playing, is she? She is all gas, no brakes. Hey, Dr. Jonathan M. Davis, it is so great to see you. Thank you so much for supporting. All right. Let's continue. Count 3, successor liability is a mere continuation against Yellen Entertainment, so it's just against Yellen. Under Florida law, a successor entity is liable for the debts and obligation of its predecessor, where the successor is the mere continuation of the predecessor. The mere continuation doctrine applies where there is a continuity of management, personnel, location, assets, business operations, and general business enterprise, accompanied by a cessation of predecessor's operations and the successor's assumption of the predecessor's business without paying adequate consideration. Boy, was that a tongue twister. Kiwi Studios is the predecessor entity whose judgment obligation Yellen assumed by operation of law is the mere continuation. The Kiwi Studio judgment, we all know it's about $3 million exclusive of post-judgment interest, which is occurring, was outstanding and unpaid at all times. So basically, this is just a continuation of the old business. It's not anything new, nothing different, no reason to really dissolve it is what they're alleging. And so they're just almost like an arm. They're an extension. Kiwi exists just under a whole new name. Okay, Yellen is the mere continuation of Kiwi Studios. Every material indicia of continuation is present. A. C. Kiwi managed Kiwi Studios and is the sole member and manager of Yellen. B. Yellen performs the identical services that Kiwi Studios performed: social media management, video production, and management of debtors' brand and platforms. C. Yellen serves the same client, which is Tasha K, through the same platform, Unwound with Tasha K Live. D. Yellen employs or engaged many of the same independent contractors as Kiwi Studios. So apparently the same people that were working before that were independent contractors, according to them, they still were working under this new entity. Kiwi Studios ceased operation concurrent with and as a direct result of Yellen's assumption of the business. And F, Yellen received the entire going concern value of Kiwi Studios business without paying any consideration to Kiwi Studios, its creditors, or anyone else. The purpose and effect of the dissolution of Kiwi Studios and the transfer of its business to Yellen was to allow the defendants to continue operating the identical business while eliminating the liability that attached to Kiwi Studios as a result of the amended defamation judgment. Kiwi Studios was dissolved with the judgment against it and no assets from which to pay it because those assets have been fraudulently transferred to Yellen. As the mere continuation, they're saying Yellen is liable for all the debts obligation of Kiwi Studios. It's just because you change names doesn't mean you can avoid the judgment, is what they are alleging. Miss Piggy said this was smart and dumb at the very same time. I would have tried to keep my coins too. Listen, the thing is this, the difference with this is you have almost a machine with Cardi B. She has a gang of lawyers, she has the money, and she can continue with this. Can you imagine the average person winning the defamation case get for $2-3 million? Do they really have the bandwidth to continually do a lot of this stuff? So a lot of people probably give up and don't really do all of this, even though it may be available to them, because you have to pay a lawyer to do it. Now, unless the lawyer has a dog in the fight, such as they're getting $1 million in attorney fees, that might be an incentive to go fight for this money. But they've already been paid too. I'm pretty sure Cardi was paying them every month or pays them on a regular basis. She probably got
Right.
a retainer where they keep a nice retainer there at all times. But the average person would not be able to go and say, well, you dissolved this entity and started another one, which is basically the identical and doing the same thing, and this is a continuation. Like to just go through the entire fight. A lot of this is monetarily based that her team is able to do this. The average person is not able to. But I understand trying to keep your money. And I know as much as people are saying in the chat, I see you, but it's not uncommon that people try to feel like, figure out how to hold their coin a little bit longer. Now, whether there were other avenues or ways that it could have been done in a better way, maybe it should have been I don't know what advice they got. Maybe somebody advised her that this was okay, this was the best way to do it. Maybe she got some type of financial advice from someone that said it's the best way. Or there's, law firms. Like when I was just at the Brian Karn hearing in Florida, he said that there was an allegation that he just filed a tax return after pleading guilty to the issues that he's going to prison for in a few weeks, that he filed another fraudulent return. And his attorney said, well, he hired a law firm, and that law firm is the one that did it. So maybe somebody advised them that this, because it does seem pretty, I guess, or I don't want to say organized. It does seem pretty sophisticated, I guess you could say, on how it was done. I don't know. But this is a lot. Yeah. E-Boogie said, all I can hear right now is TK screaming, break the chat. Thank you for the super chat, honey. I appreciate that. And Liquid V381 said, and everybody who works under that umbrella better watch out because her team will come for you also. Okay.
Storm season is here, and across the Carolinas, we're strengthening our systems to help prevent outages and restore power quickly while keeping you informed. It's all part of building a smarter energy future for you.
Do you know the story of Robin Hood? He was not a hero. They were monsters. I am the outlaw. Robin Hood.
Lady Azure21 said 30 years in tech. We can trace every click of your keyboard and mouse. We've been doing this for years. Dumb criminals. I might need your information. I need some clicks for some people on my own stuff. Nah. You know what? Not UPS is hiring. Benji said, Benji's Pit World said TK continues to drag this out, time, money, etc. that would be going towards her family's continuing to go towards this case. That can be ended if she simply complies. Well, I think doing the payment, so some of this too is when the pay, because there are some payment arrangements, some of it is joint. So once that gets paid, then it will take it off of Yellen or her husband or however they're trying to get this money. I think it would take off of that as well. But yeah, I mean, I think she tried to do a GoFundMe at one point. I don't know what happened with that to try to raise money. She did good, like in the day. I did see her reporting that. But yeah, trying to get rid of the debt, I agree, because it's accumulating. The interest is accumulating every day. Then you got to pay. She has to pay her lawyers. That's eventually going to have to respond to this. Then she's been going back to court in bankruptcy when oftentimes, well, I have a client who filed bankruptcy in the middle of our case, and it's been a nightmare for the last 7 years too. So when you get people that have money that will fight your bankruptcy, it is no joke. It is no joke. And I have something similar to that's going on, no matter how unfair you think that it is or whatever. They want to utilize every avenue they think they can to try to stop it. And once she filed the bankruptcy, honestly, I was anticipating there was going to be a fight. She wasn't just going to let her organize and say, well, this is how much I can pay you. And it was going to be something that Cardi B was going to try to get out of it, which it sounds like they ended up coming with a settlement, which included her not being able to say her name, to keep her name out of her mouth, and her family's name, and families to the second cousin, and baby daddies, and husbands, and everybody ended up on the list. So, but yeah, this is getting way more costly because of the non-payment. I do agree with that. So, hey, good to see you. Joanne said TK should have wrote the wave and pivot for niche content. Yeah, I think with the Cardi B stuff, it did bring her good notoriety. It got her some notoriety, more notoriety. It's not like she wasn't known, but it did give her some more notoriety with the Cardi B. She must have been making good money. She was like, listen, because she must have been making really good money. But yeah. Let's see. You said they don't want to go back to, you know what? You said they probably arguing every 5 minutes. And Leo said she could have broken the chains by leaving Cardi alone. I wonder if she's like, dang, I wish I'd have just took it down, because from my understanding, Cardi asked her to take it down, and that's what she wanted at first. And I guess she wouldn't take the video.
I'm gonna go ahead and end this here. Basically, Cardi B's getting that paper. That's basically what's going on here. Thank y'all for being here. Like, share, subscribe. Hope we see y'all again soon. Peace.